By the clearest noon of my darkest week, I finally understood how daylight could stretch shadows long enough to bury you. Before I tell you the rest, do me a favor. If this story already has you leaning in, heart tight, breath slow, go ahead and hit subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to feel something real today. I promise what's coming will stay with you. Now, let me tell you how daylight can ruin and rescue you in the same breath. My name is Lena Monroe. I'm 54, black, and born in the sun-scorched southern edge of Belford County, raised between church steps and the red clay stalls of the weekend market. For 22 years I was married to Jonah Monroe, a man who measured time by warranties and built everything twice, once in his head, once with his hands. When he passed, I thought the ache would stop at grief. But grief was only the foyer. I walked into the office of attorney Harold Wynne, believing heartbreak would be the only thing I had to carry. The room smelled of lemon wax and printer heat. My daughter Rhea sat next to me, her charcoal suit too fitted, her phone face down. Her posture could have sliced air. At exactly noon, when the sun hit the blinds like knives trying to cut their way in, Mr. Wynne began reading Jonah's will. His voice was smooth and impersonal. "To my wife, Lena Monroe," he said, "I leave the Creekside property on Aspen Road, along with all contents therein." I blinked once. Aspen Road. The shack that leaned like it had an opinion. To be continued. That cabin hadn't seen a working light bulb in a decade. The porch slanted so far east it looked like it was bowing out of shame. Jonah's father left it to him, but we never touched it. Too many repairs, too little time. But Wynne kept reading. "To my daughter Rhea Monroe, I leave the family residence on Maple Hollow, all financial accounts, investments, and a sum of $4.3 million. The air left the room so fast I felt the silence press against my ribs. Rhea didn't flinch. Didn't reach for my hand. Her lips parted into something shaped like a smile, but colder. "There's no mistake," she said, voice soft, verdict sure. "Dad meant this exactly how it sounds." Outside, the sun was white and merciless. We walked through the parking lot like strangers, her heels clicking, my thoughts unraveling. On the way home, she stared out the window like the whole town belonged to her name. That evening, as I stirred gumbo in the kitchen I'd built brick by weary brick, she cleared her throat. "It's time to talk living arrangements," she said. "This house is mine now. You'll need your own space." My hand tightened on the spoon. "My space. My space," I repeated, as if the word had suddenly lost its meaning. Faced her. The gumbo bubbled behind me, the scent of smoked sausage and thyme curling around the edges of heartbreak. "Your father and I poured our weekends into these walls. I built sunrises here. You learned to walk on these floors." She leaned against the counter, utterly composed. "And now it's mine." Her voice was like iced tea on a hot day, chilled, smooth, and without apology. "The cabin has 4 walls. 1 week should be enough to get settled." I tasted metal. 1 week. Her smile was faint but sharp. "Consider it an opportunity to rediscover your independence." Packed by daylight. I refused to let the dark witness me being pushed out of my own history. I chose only what could fit: 2 suitcases, a few framed photos. Not the china passed down from my mother. Rhea took that with a glance that said property, not memory. On the 7th morning, she emerged in a sundress I didn't recognize, gold hoops glittering like reward. "Don't take this personal, Mama," she said from the driveway. "Daddy had his reasons." I looked her in the eye. "And what reasons would those be?" She stepped closer. For a breath, I thought she might reach for me, might fold me into a hug and say it wasn't what it looked like. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned in just enough for her voice to fall between us like a stone. "He finally saw the truth," she whispered. "You depended. I produced." And just like that, my heart stopped trying to reason with her. I drove away in my old sedan, its engine humming low under the unflinching noon. Heat rippled off the asphalt like it was daring me to quit before I even started. The cabin, if it still deserved that word, stood like a ghost at the end of Aspen Road. Its paint peeled in long, bitter strips. The windows were cracked, the steps groaned beneath my weight, and a hole in the roof spilled sunlight across the dusty floor like it didn't care who saw the ruin. But it was mine. And that day, shamelessly bright, didn't offer pity, only space. I set my suitcases down, unfolded a worn blanket, and cried until the earth soaked up the sound. When the sobs faded, something remained. Not rage. Not yet. Just a flicker of resolve. Days began to move like chores, slow, stiff, and necessary. I learned the creek's voice first. It muttered at dawn, rose to a song by midday, and hushed like prayer come dusk. I hauled water in cracked plastic buckets that kissed blisters into my palms. I cooked outside on a camping stove Jonah once swore we'd never need. By noon, the cabin smelled of warm resin and old buried stories. The phone rang under a sky so bright it almost felt cruel. Lena. My sister Marnie's voice crackled with cautious care. Did you really curse out the attorney? Did you ask for the money? No, I said, each syllable like a nail into something solid. She hesitated. Rhea said you're unstable. Said you scared her. By Friday, my sister-in-law pushed back our weekly lunch. By Monday, a cousin who used to borrow sugar and leave thank-you notes hinted I was drinking too much. Rhea wasn't satisfied with the house or the money. She was repaving the narrative. Fresh lines painted right over truth. A week later, a gleaming white Mercedes rolled slow down my dirt road like it didn't want to get its tires dirty. It glittered like a warning. The door of the coupe swung open like it belonged in a catalog. Rhea stepped out in linen and oversized sunglasses, the kind worn by women who mistake distance for dignity. She didn't ask to come inside. Just checking on you, she sang, her eyes skating over the warped porch and sagging eaves. This is quaint. Are you really living like this? I met her gaze. I live where I was sent. She leaned in, sunlight catching every sharp angle of her face. If you're thinking of contesting anything, she murmured, don't. Daddy hired the best. It's airtight. Try, and you'll end up with less than this. Then she turned, slid behind the wheel, and disappeared in a plume of glittering dust. I stood there, the sun pressing down on my shoulders, and realized I had just let the same girl who once colored on my good curtains dictate my worth. A blue jay shrieked from the trees, loud and sudden, like it had a comment on the whole damn mess. And maybe it did. So I stopped being the woman folks rewrote. Stopped letting silence be mistaken for surrender. The day was too bright to pretend anymore. The next morning, I swept the porch and my anger into neat, quiet piles. The broom snagged on a loose board. I bent down to pull it back, and there, nestled in the dust and splinters, was a key. Heavy, worn, etched with markings that looked like a secret someone forgot to whisper. I held it in the sun. It cast a thin golden line across my palm, like a thread meant to stitch something back together. That afternoon, with sunlight as my lantern, I searched the cabin until I found the hatch in the floorboards, half hidden behind a leaning bookcase. I opened it and descended into the cool hush of the earth. The air down there smelled of stone, damp wood, and secrets that had waited too long. At the back wall, behind an old tool shelf, was a metal door with a lock that matched the key exactly. It turned like it had only been sleeping. Inside, a manila envelope and a slim metal box. I brought them up into the light. On the porch, noon cut bright strips across the floor as I opened the envelope. What I found made my hands tremble. Inside the envelope were deeds, state-sealed, notarized, and ironclad, bearing my name. Not just the cabin. Not just the patch of dirt it sat on. 210 acres. Stretching beyond the creek, wrapping up into the ridgeline like a forgotten inheritance. Attached were geological surveys from 2 summers back. Neat diagrams, color-coded charts, smoky quartz, citron, black tourmaline, valuable veins if harvested right. Clipped to the back, a purchase offer from a regional mining firm, $3.8 million. Declined. In Jonah's square, meticulous handwriting were 4 words. Not yet. For Lena. My breath caught. My heart followed. I opened the metal box next. Inside was a letter, addressed to me. My Lena. If you're reading this in daylight, then you found the key I trusted you to find. I know Ria's nature. Brilliant, ambitious, but untethered. Money would only feed what it shouldn't. The cabin wouldn't scare you. It would wake you. What sits beneath your feet is freedom. Yours and no one else's. I kept it separate so only you could touch it. There's a safety deposit box in your name. The number is on the back of this letter. Inside are more reports and contacts. You were always the steady one. Remember, people can spend a windfall. They can't spend patience. J. Asterisk. I read it again in full sun. Because truth deserves light. He hadn't punished me. He hadn't forgotten me. Jonah had protected me the only way he knew how, with planning and silence. He'd seen the fault lines in our daughter long before I had. Brilliance without ballast breaks easy. He'd chosen to place his legacy where it wouldn't be swallowed by vanity. By mid-afternoon, something steadier had settled in my bones. Not pride, no, pride's too noisy. Purpose. If Ria wanted to spin a tale that ran through town like gospel, then mine would be written in deeds and ledgers and bedrock. I copied the names from Jonah's letter, circled the bank address, and tucked it all into a canvas tote bag that used to hold old church programs and recipes from women who could cook healing into cornbread. Just before dusk, my neighbor ambled up the drive. Levi Harmon. 80-something years in overalls, older than most churches. He lifted his cap and leaned on my gatepost. Jonah was a planner, he said, eyes crinkling with something close to mischief. This land. Folks underestimate it at high noon and regret it by harvest. I plan to hold tight, I said. And for the first time since the will, I wasn't bluffing. That night, I washed my face in a chipped porcelain bowl on the porch steps, let the wind dry my skin, and sat with Jonah's letter across my lap as the day mellowed to honey. Ria had the house on Maple Hollow, the marble countertops, the imported car, and a carefully staged version of the truth. But I had something deeper. Indeed. A ridge that held its tongue like it was waiting for someone patient enough to listen. The best part about daylight is that nothing can hide from you. Not lies, not legacy. I decided then. I would do my work in full sun, speak only when needed, and let silence be my scaffolding until the foundation was set. Next morning I slid the key into my pocket. It was still warm from where it had slept in my hand, and drove into town with the windows down so the air could talk to me. The Belford Credit Union sat beneath a blooming crepe myrtle that shook pink petals down like confetti. Inside I signed for the safety deposit box Jonah had marked. The clerk handed me the key like I was checking out a book with answers I hadn't earned yet. Inside the booth, I lifted the lid on the box like I was unwrapping part of my own spine. Neatly packed inside were updated geological surveys, 3 business cards from mining executives, and a leather-bound notebook embossed with Jonah's initials. Opened it. His handwriting greeted me. Square, deliberate, not a loop out of place. Every line was a plan written by a man who believed order could outlast chaos. Ask about community impact agreements. Jobs local first. Royalty floor plus escalation clauses if the market spikes. Keep surface rights. Sell only extraction. If Ria pressures you. Mail. Sip water. Say nothing. I laughed loud, sudden. Right there in the booth in high noon. Felt like rebellion, like permission. I stepped outside, sunlight warming my back, traffic murmuring like gossip too tired to lie. I dialed the first number on his list from a payphone. Attorney Clara Bellamy answered. Black woman, sharp voice, clean like pressed linen and courtroom truth. Mrs. Monroe, she said. I don't meet in back rooms. If we're talking deals, we do it in the daylight. Outside the library. 12:30 suit you? It does, I said. I like the sun on my decisions. The library lawn spread out like a welcome mat made of sunlight and clipped grass. I found Attorney Clara Bellamy under a patio umbrella that filtered the heat into honey-colored slants. Her briefcase was the color of good leather and old boundaries. She didn't waste time. I laid out the deeds, mineral rights, and Jonah's surveys. She read them with the kind of focus that makes men sit straighter without knowing why. "This," she said, tapping the latest survey, "is no small patch of dirt. Smoky quartz, citron, black tourmaline, veins rich and deep. Possibly even amethyst pockets." She glanced up. "But the paper trail's the real treasure. Clean title. Mineral and surface rights separated. In your name only. Your husband knew exactly what he was doing." "I want to do the same," I said. "No gouged hills. No broken promises. Royalties, reclamation, jobs for locals, and silence. Until I decide otherwise." Clara nodded, pleased. "Silence costs leverage. But it buys you safety. We'll start discreetly, 3 firms, no more. Let them bid against each other. In full sun." By 2 p.m. we had a plan. I left with her business card tucked into my tote and stopped at the farmer's market to buy tomatoes, something red and honest to sit on my counter. The sky over the market was bleached white, stretched thin by heat. Food trucks hummed beneath it, sweating out soul food and second chances. Near the sweet corn stand, I ran into Miss Joya Bell, whose gossip always arrived dressed like concern. "Lena," she said, fluttering herself with a church bulletin, "your Ria's been in and out of Wexley Jewelers like it's a contest. And I seen a cherry red sports coupe parked at her curb that could pay off my niece's student loans." I smiled, picking through cucumbers. That girl always did love a shine. But I pocketed the information like a coin. By Wednesday, Clara had answers. We met again outdoors, our rule. She laid 3 folders on the cafe table, the sun gilding their edges. Firm A. $1.4 million signing bonus, 10% base royalty, escalator to 14%. $750,000 local training fund, $2 million reclamation bond. Pause. Firm B. Less cash up front, but 12% base royalty rising to 15%. Smaller bond, though. And Firm C. Yes. She flicked it aside. Offered to buy everything outright for $4.3 million, including the land. I didn't hesitate. "Shred it," I said. "You can't spend a horizon." Clara smiled. "That's the answer I hoped for." "We'll counter A and B," Clara said, her pen already moving. "Blend the best terms. Make them fight each other for daylight." "I also want a new geological verification," I told her. "Someone who doesn't answer to a corporation." She nodded, pleased. "My pick is Dr. Vernon Ellis. Black geologist. Independent. Careful. He'll walk your ridge by sunlight and tell us what the dirt really says." "Book him," I said. "And Clara, keep my name out of it." She tipped her sunglasses. "I enjoy saying no on your behalf." While Clara moved papers, I moved earth. The cabin got solar panels tucked behind the shed like quiet reinforcements. A rain catch system that glinted like wisdom. A well pump disguised in a crate painted the color of bark. I paid for it all with bridge money. Small checks Jonah had left in his notebook for Lena's quiet fixes. Rhea didn't call, but she posted. Yachts on Lake Glen. Brunches under umbrellas too wide for shade and too narrow for truth. I didn't follow her, but Marnie sent screenshots like she didn't mean to. Always daytime, always outside. The very world I was rebuilding but rooted instead of rented. "Miss Monroe," someone called one noon from the dirt road. Mr. Levi Harmon leaned on my fence post, elbow resting easy. "Saw a man with a tripod walking your ridge. Friend or foe?" "Friend," I said. "He listens to stone." Dr. Vernon Ellis had arrived that morning. Field boots, sun hat, eyes like polished amber, kind and thorough. He worked the land with instruments and intuition, pausing where the ridge outcropped like bone under thin skin. Over lunch, we ate sandwiches off the tailgate of his truck. "What's your aim?" he asked between bites. "Money's a tool," I said. "Legacy is a plan. I want mine to cast shade over someone else's tomorrow." He grinned wide. "Then we'll count honestly. Stones don't lie, but they sure don't like liars." 2 days later, under a sky without apology, He laid his findings across my porch table. "The veins are cleaner than the original report," he said, tapping the map. "Thicker citron here. Steady quartz. This seam of tourmaline runs deeper than expected. Conservatively, 8 to 11 million in extraction rights, depending on market flow. But reclamation," he added, "is non-negotiable." "Non-negotiable," I echoed. "We agree." Clara didn't smile when she read Dr. Ellis's report. She recalculated. By Friday, both Firm A and Firm B were squinting into the same sun, each trying to outdo the other. "Firm A is now offering a $1.9 million signing bonus," Clara said, spreading their latest proposal across my kitchen table. "Royalty at 10%, escalating to 13% with market triggers. $3 million reclamation bond." I raised an eyebrow. "And Firm B," countered with 12% base royalty, rising to 15%. Smaller bonus, but stronger commitment to local hiring and training. I didn't answer right away. I watched a bee dip into the open throat of a sunflower by the porch. "I want a scholarship fund," I said. "Named for Jonah and for Mr. Levi's late wife, Alma. She taught half this county to read under pecan trees." Clara tapped her pen. "Done. They'll try to bury it in PR fluff, but I'll write it so they can't squirm out once the cameras leave." Out in town, Ria's sunshine had started to fade. At the bank kiosk, her voice carried, "I need another 30,000 wired, and open the credit line against the trust." A woman in line glanced at me, raised one eyebrow. The kind of look that means we both know. I bought a lemonade from a teenager's folding table and minded my business in the full sun, just like I planned to keep doing. That evening, Marnie called from her porch, kids shouting in the background. "Ria canceled that rooftop lunch she wouldn't shut up about," she said. "Returned a whole jewelry set too. Word is that red coupe sits more than it moves." "Daylight keeps receipts," I murmured. And sure enough, that Saturday, dust curled on the road like a curtain lifting. Ria's little sedan crept down Aspen Road. She stepped out slowly. No sunglasses. No glass. Pride left in the car. "Mother," she said, voice thin, "can we talk?" "Outside." "Outside is the only place I do that now," I said, motioning to the porch chairs. She didn't ask to come in. She sat across from me in the light that makes truth harder to dodge. "I'm not okay," she said. "I misjudged some things. Obligations piled up. If you could, just for a month, float me $25,000. I'll pay it back." I remembered Jonah's note. "Mail. Sip water. Say nothing." So I did. The wind rustled between us, offering the only counsel either of us could afford. After a long pause, I set down my glass and looked her square. "Ria," I said, calm as the trees behind me, "what's your plan when the month ends?" She swallowed hard. "I'll take on a bigger case at the firm. Cut expenses. Sell the coupe if I have to." "You'll need more than that," I said, rising. "Walk with me." We stepped into the yard, where zinnias lifted their bright, gossiping heads to the sun. I pointed to the rain catch barrel, the solar panels tucked behind the shed, the well pump hidden in plain sight. "You spent your daylight chasing shine," I said. "I spent mine building infrastructure." She blinked. "So, you're okay out here?" "I'm anchored out here," I said. "Because I gave the day a job." Her voice wobbled. "I should have come sooner." "No," I corrected gently. "You should have come correct." I didn't tell her about the royalties or the contracts or the scholarship fund. Not yet. Instead, I told her what the sun would have told her, had she bothered to stand still long enough to listen. "I won't give you a gift," I said. "But I might offer a contract." She blinked. "A contract? One that builds your spine and returns my peace, with interest," I said. She sat straighter, listening the way she used to when Jonah helped her with math homework. "You'll come here every Saturday. High noon. For a full year. Yard work. Repairs. Paper sorting. You'll speak to me with respect. You'll sit with Mr. Levi 2 afternoons a month to learn the land you thought beneath you. In return, I'll loan you $40,000. 4% interest. 4 years to repay. She nodded slowly. And if I miss a Saturday? Miss 1 without cause, interest jumps to 8. Miss 2. I met her eyes. I collect in ways you won't enjoy. That's structured, she said, blinking hard. That's love that learned math. She looked at her lap for a long moment. Then she nodded, not as a child seeking approval, but as a woman ready to be held accountable. I agree. We wrote it down on the porch table. Daylight watch. Levi waved lazily from the fence like a witness to something good. When she signed, her hand was steady. Different from the girl who used to rush. When she left, contract in her pocket and pride trailing small behind her, I stayed. I sat with Jonah's letter, the key beside it catching sunlight like a nod from the past. I wanted to tell him, I'm not building revenge. I'm building renovation. Of land. Of boundaries. Of a daughter who once believed wealth came from rooms instead of roots. That evening Clara called. Ferme blinked first, she said. $2.2 million signing bonus. Royalty scale from 10 to 13%. Reclamation and training fund locked. Alma and Jonah scholarship, perpetual. Gag clause optional. And firm B. Yes. Still richer on royalties. Lighter on bond. If we push one more round, we can net the best of both. But I'll only push if you feel strong. I looked out over my yard. Rain barrels full, solar panels gleaming, tools lined like gospel. Strength wasn't a feeling anymore. It was infrastructure. Push, I said. In daylight. Always. She laughed. Daylight is my favorite co-counsel. When I hung up, I didn't smile out of pride. I smiled out of clarity. Jonah had left me a cabin. Rhea tried to leave me a story. I turned them both into foundation. Daylight did the rest. The end.